Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Trumpet's Call. I'm MessiYah. I pray that you are holding on to faith and holding on to hope during these times. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome back to the channel on this fine Shabbat. And I pray that you are doing well today despite the circumstances, despite what's going on in the world. I pray that you are holding on to the hope that one day, soon, we're going home. Hallelujah. Thank you for joining me once again for another session of our Defending Yacob series. I'm going to call it that. I just came up with that. The Most High has given explicit instructions regarding this lesson and the lesson before it. He wants Yacob, whom he loves so much. He wants his name cleared. Yacob was an honorable man, but the way he's been described in Christian circles is far less than that. And so we are looking at the scripture to bring vindication to our father, Yacob. We are redeeming Yacob. The father, I should say, is redeeming him and redeeming his name. It's important. It's important to him. It's important to us. So when we look at this word vindicate, I thought I would look it up and give you a definition for it, because we know what the word means. I'm sure we do. However, it's best to always look at the definition because it really helps to cement in your mind what the purpose of these videos are. So, to vindicate, it's a transitive verb. It means to clear of accusation, blame, suspicion, or doubt with supporting arguments or proof. And that's what we're doing. We're clearing our ancestor Jacob's name and his character from accusation, blame, suspicion, or doubt that he was somehow a trickster, a supplanter in a negative sense, a liar, or did anything wrong or displeasing to the Most High, according to Christian circles and the way they have characterized him over the centuries. It also means to defend, to maintain, or insist on the recognition of one's rights, for example. So we are insisting that Yacob be seen as he was. He was certainly not a perfect man. None of us are, but he is not what they are portraying him to be. And so we demand and we defend and insist on proper recognition for him. We love him and he loves us, and he was faithful to the Most High, and he deserves to be recognized in that way. It also means to demonstrate or prove the value of, validity, or to justify. And so we come together today in love and support of our ancestor Yacob, who has gone on before us, but who we will see again. We will see him again, and we will meet him for the first time. And we will know that his name means someone who did the will of the Father, who supplanted and tore down evil and wickedness where he found it. That he is someone who was faithful to the charge and faithful to do as the Most High called him to do. So we're going to continue on in our lesson for today in this part 2 of the series. So in the process of doing these lessons, I came across some really interesting information on Mount Moriah and Mount Zion, which if you haven't seen that series, I'm going to recommend that you go take a look at that video. It's actually 2 videos because we had some trouble the day that I did that. We had some demonic attack, and so we had to end it early and then come back and finish up. So there are actually 2 videos there, a part 1 and a part 2. But that's a really wonderful study on the really wonderful significance of Mount Moriah and Mount Zion. If you haven't seen that, check it out. And so we have been looking at Yacob and Esau and comparing and contrasting the 2 brothers to see which one was righteous and which one was unrighteous, which one was holy and which one was unholy, which one did the will of his father and which one sinned against the father. So we're looking at them and juxtaposing them against one another and clearing our ancestor Jacob's name. Last time, we looked at Esau's name and we gave a definition, but someone in the comment section said a really wonderful thing during our last lesson. He said, I see that Esau's name means a wicked head, and that is a perfect definition. When you look at his name in the Paleo-Hebrew, it means a wicked head. I had given the definition of someone who is a leader, who is really comfortable being in charge and telling people what to do and telling people to do or to make, while he himself sits back and receives the benefits of their doing and their making, and that he is attempting to build for himself a kingdom that stands in the place of Messiah, not only presenting to us a false Messiah in the form of Jesus H. Christ, but also a fake and false people that stand in the place where it should not stand. And so we discussed that last time. And we also looked at the lifestyle, the character, the Torah observance, and the occupation of Yacob and Esau in various ways. Today, we're going to continue in that vein. We're going to present scriptures from the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher that is going to demonstrate more about their character and the things that they did in this life when they were here on this earth, and how it points to who they were and who their descendants are, and the character traits that each group, both groups, still continue to carry on in this world today. So we're going to continue on today. And we're going to begin in the book of Jubilees, and we're going to continue on where we left off last week. We were talking about Yacob dressing himself up in Esau's clothes, and at the request of his mother, and receiving the blessing from his father, Yitzhak, who was about to give it to the wrong person. And we talked about him being short-sighted and about him not doing the things that were pleasing in the Most High's sight. In this regard, he almost made a huge mistake. But thank the Most High for his wife, Rebecca, who encompassed him, who walked around him and saw the flaws and the faults in his reasoning, and she stepped up and she did what was best for Yacob. So we're going to continue on with the recording.
And Jacob had gone forth from Isaac his father. He hid himself, and Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also made savory meat, and brought it to his father, and said unto his father, Let my father arise, and eat of my venison, that thy soul may bless thee. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said unto him, I am thy firstborn, thy son Esau. I have done as thou hast commanded me. And Isaac was very greatly astonished, and said, Who is he that hath hunted, and caught, and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before thou camest, and have blessed him, and he shall be blessed, and all his seed forever. And it came to pass, when Esau heard the words of his father Isaac, that he cried with an exceeding great and bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, father. And he said unto him, Thy brother came with guile, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Now I know why his name is named Jacob. Behold, he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved a blessing for me, father? And Isaac answered, and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants, and with plenty of corn and wine and oil have I strengthened him. And what now shall I do for thee, my son? And Esau said to Isaac his father, Hast thou but one blessing, O father? Bless me, even me also, father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac answered and said unto him, Behold, far from the dew of the earth shall be thy dwelling, and far from the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword wilt thou live, and thou wilt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou becomest great, and dost shake his yoke from off thy neck, thou wilt sin a complete sin unto death, and thy seed will be rooted out from under heaven. And Esau kept threatening Jacob, because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And he said in his heart, May the days of mourning for my father now come, so that I may slay my brother Jacob.
Okay, we'll pause there. So we can see that Esau is very angry. He has murder in his eyes, and he wants to take out Yacob. He wants to kill him, his own brother, because Yacob received a blessing, a barakah, that Esau knew in his heart that he had sold. Someone made an interesting comment in the last video that we did on this topic. They said, why did not Esau tell his father that he had sold his birthright? Why indeed? Why didn't he tell him? Why didn't he say, Father, I'm not worthy to receive the birthright because I sold it. I sold it to my brother. If he had done that, then Yacob would not have been forced to do what he did, or what his mother insisted that he did. But Esau is a man without integrity. We can see that. He did not forthrightly confess to his father that he had sold the birthright. He didn't. And because he didn't, he wanted to then be able to sell the birthright, get the riches, and still receive the birthright. He wants everything. The scripture talks about Edom in the book of Obadiah as one who is greedy, one who's not satisfied with just breaking into a house and taking a few of the items. He will break into a house and take everything. He's like the Grinch. He'll take even the last littlest crumb. He wants it all. So he wanted to sell the birthright because it meant nothing to him. But then he also wanted to receive the blessing as well. He is a man without integrity. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what's happening here. We see Yacob, at the insistence of his mother, dressing himself up in Esau's clothing and receiving the blessing. And we see Esau being angry because there was not much left for him. However, Yacob, the father of these two sons, did something, and I'm not sure if he realized what he did and if he did it on his own volition or if he did it because the father was just speaking prophetically through him. I'm not sure which one this is. But essentially, what Yitzhak did was he gave Jacob, Yacob, the blessing of Abraham, of Abraham. And then he turned around and gave it to Esau. I know you're going to say, no, what? How did he do that? He did that. He did that because what he essentially did was he said, when you are great and when you have taken your brother's knee off of your neck, you will rise up and you will overcome him essentially with your sword. So the blessing fell upon Esau in such a way that Esau would obtain the blessed status of being blessed in the city and blessed in the field and being blessed in the basket and blessed in the store and all of those things. Not the relationship now, just the physical, tangible blessings, barakah of the Most High, but not the relationship with the Most High and not the priesthood. So he was able to attain to those things without the relationship with the Most High if he used it and got it and derived it using his sword. That's what Yitzhak did. That's the blessing that he placed on him. Now, like I said before, I'm not sure if the Most High was speaking prophetically through him or if he was just loving his son so much that he couldn't see past the fact that this man was not chosen by the Most High. I'm not exactly sure, but the blessing that Esau received is one where he is prosperous by the use of his sword. And it puts him in a position with regard to his brother, that the minute his brother sins the sin against the Most High, breaking covenant, then in comes Esau to serve as the Most High's judge, to judge the nation, our nation that sinned. That's the way it ended up happening. So much so that right now, Esau is ruling. Esau is ruling because Jacob's descendants sinned. When we sinned, Esau was able to overcome us using his sword. And that's what we see. That's what happened. That's the blessing that Yitzhak gave to his eldest son. Okay? So, there's another thing that we see in this passage. And Sister Anaya was really wonderful in being able to see into this. The Most High gave her some insight into these verses of Scripture. And so she shared them with me. And so I will share in brief with you what she shared with me. In this picture of Yacob dressing himself up in the clothing of his brother Esau, we see Yacob receiving the blessing and the barakah of the Most High because he was worthy of it. It was meant for him. It was given to him. But the way in which he went about it was he dressed himself up in his brother's clothing. Now, this was his mother's idea. But be that as it may, in this picture of Jacob, dressing himself in Esau's clothing, we see a picture of our slavery. We see a picture of our fall from grace. And we also see a picture of how we will be redeemed. Okay? So when Yacob dressed in Esau's clothing, the clothing is a reference to the Babylonian system. It was hairy clothing. It was indicative of that which is beast-like. Esau hung out in the fields, in the world, in the systems of this world where they kill and they pillage and they murder. That's where he hung out. And we dressed ourselves in those clothing. It was almost as if this was a foreshadowing that eventually Yacob would enter into Esau's world acting like Esau, doing the things that Esau did, killing and stealing and pillaging and murdering and breaking the Most High's commandments. Eventually, Jacob's descendants dressed themselves in Esau's clothes and began to act like Esau. And when that happened, the Most High used Esau and his descendants to judge Yacob. You see that? He used Esau's descendants to bring judgment upon Yacob to get Yacob back on the straight and narrow path. In addition to that, what we see is Yacob trapped in this Babylonian system, trapped in slavery, still to this day, trapped in disenfranchisement, trapped in the criminal justice system, trapped in many cases in the bondage of poverty and all the things that our people suffer, still trapped to this day under Esau's knee on Jacob's neck, still to this day. And we want to be free. And we're crying out for freedom. We're crying out for justice. We're crying out for justice for Yacob, justice for Yacob. But what must Yacob do in order to be free? What can he do in order to get Esau's knee off of his neck? Well, it's obvious to us that we must repent. We must repent so that the blessing can once again go from Esau back to Yacob. This is what must happen. This is what we desire to happen. We must repent. And when we come before the Most High and we admit that we dressed ourselves in Esau's clothes, that we've been acting like Esau, we've been acting like Esau's descendants, that we've been sinning and breaking Torah and breaking the Most High's commandments, and we repent, then we disrobe. We take off Esau's clothing and we say, I am not Esau. But there's something else we must do. We must admit to our Father, our Heavenly Father, and we must say to our Heavenly Father, I am not Esau, I am Yacob. And how do we do that? We do that through the awakening. The Most High is giving us an opportunity right now, brothers and sisters, to admit who we are, to take off Esau's raiment and say, I am Yacob. I am Yacob. The blessing was given to me fairly. I may have dressed myself in Esau's clothing for a time, but I am Yacob. And when we come to an awakening of our identity and we stand in the truth of that and we're not ashamed of it, if we hold our hands up and say, before the Most High, I decree and declare that I am Yacob, we are making confession. We are making the confession that Yacob could have made in his father's presence. As he said, Father, I am Yacob, and that blessing belongs to me. Not because I dressed myself up in Esau's clothing, but because the Most High meant it for me. That is what we must do. We must confess with our mouths that we are Yacob, and we must confess with our mouths that we are the fathers by faith in Yahushua. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. We've got to begin to testify, brothers and sisters. We've got to testify to the Father's goodness and testify to his desire to save us and testify to whose we are and testify to who we are. We are Yacob. I am Yacob, brothers and sisters. Who are you? Who are you? Hallelujah. There's one more thing we see in this passage before we move on. So the minute Esau doesn't get what he wants, he doesn't get the blessing that he has sold. It doesn't belong to him. He sold it. But the minute he doesn't get it, he's hastening the death of his father now. He's hastening it. He's saying, oh man, the days of mourning come for my father so I may kill my brother. So what's interesting here is that when Yitzhak called his sons to grant them the blessing, the barakah, he still had many years left to live. Abraham, when he passed the blessing on to Yitzhak, he was near his death. And Jacob, when he was passing the blessing on to his sons, he was near his death. For some reason, Yitzhak did not know that the days of his death were not as near as he thought. Scripture says he had grown older in years and that his eyes were dim. Spiritually speaking, He couldn't see. He did not have the spiritual sight that his father Abraham had. He called in his son Esau to give him the blessing, and he still had 57 years left to live. Isaac died at 180. That means he had 57 years left to live. He was 123 years old when he called Esau in to give him the blessing of the firstborn. Typically, that would be something that would be done closer to your death. Yitzhak could not see the day of his death approaching. He couldn't see it. He lacked spiritual vision and spiritual sight. He couldn't see, not like his father could. Two evidences. He was giving the blessing to the wrong person at the wrong time. The wrong person at the wrong time. Okay? Eventually, he would rectify the situation, and we'll see that in the passage. But for right now, suffice it to say that our father, Yitzhak, has an issue with sight. His eyes are dim spiritually as well as physically. But sometimes it happens to us. I am by no means throwing him under the bus, because sometimes we have this problem with spiritual sight where we can't see in situations, especially where it's around people who we love and we can't see or don't want to see their flaws. We don't want to think badly about this person. We love them. They're our honey bun. They're the love of our lives, and we don't want to see the truth about this person, even though it's staring us right in the face. Maya Angelou said, when a person shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Esau on many occasions demonstrated to Isaac, Yitzhak, who he was, but he didn't believe him. He was so proud to have a son who was a cunning hunter. He must have been so proud to have someone who could go into the field and stalk the venison, stalk the deer, can come back and make him tasty treats and tasty meals. He must have been so proud that his son had such hunting prowess, that he was a hunter of the field, a man of the world. He must have been so proud. The scripture says that Yitzhak loved Esau. There was something about him that made him love him, even though he was wicked. He was wicked, but Yitzhak loved Esau. But Rebekah and Abraham loved Jacob because he was righteous, because he was the one that the Most High had chosen. So in his lack of ability to see, he almost made the wrong choice at the wrong time. Thank the Most High for his wife, Rebekah. She was a rib for him. She encompassed him. She was a rib, and she helped him. She saved him from making a really bad decision. So we're going to continue on and see what more this passage has to teach us. Continuing on.
Rebekah induces Isaac to send Jacob to Mesopotamia. And Jacob was very much afraid of his brother Esau, and he rose up and fled to the house of Eber, the son of Shem, and he concealed himself there on account of his brother. And Jacob was 63 years old when he went forth from the land of Canaan from Hebron. And Jacob was concealed in Eber's house 14 years on account of his brother Esau, and he there continued to learn the ways of the Lord and his commandments. And when Esau saw that Jacob had fled and escaped from him, and that Jacob had cunningly obtained the blessing, then Esau grieved exceedingly, and he was also vexed at his father and mother. And he also rose up and took his wife and went away from his father and mother to the land of Seir, and he dwelt there. And Esau saw there a woman from amongst the daughters of Heth, whose name was Bosmath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And he took her for a wife in addition to his first wife, and Esau called her name Adah, saying the blessing had in that time passed from him. And Esau dwelt in the land of Seir 6 months, without seeing his father and mother. And afterward Esau took his wives, and rose up and returned to the land of Canaan. And Esau placed his 2 wives in his father's house in Hebron. And the wives of Esau vexed and provoked Isaac and Rebekah with their works, for they walked not in the ways of the Lord, but they served their father's gods of wood and stone, as their father had taught them, and they were more wicked than their father. And they went according to the evil desires of their hearts, and they sacrificed and burnt incense to the Baalim, and Isaac and Rebekah became weary of them. And Rebekah said, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob take a wife of the daughters of Heth, such as these which are of the daughters of the land, What good then is life unto me? And in those days, Adah, the wife of Esau, conceived, and bare him a son. And Esau called the name of the son that was born unto him Eliphaz. And Esau was 65 years old when she bare him. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, died in those days, in the 64th year of the life of Jacob. And all the days that Ishmael lived were 137 years, and he died. And when Isaac heard that Ishmael was dead, he mourned for him. And Isaac lamented over him many days. And at the end of 14 years of Jacob's residing in the house of Eber, Jacob desired to see his father and mother. And Jacob came to the house of his father and mother, to Hebron. And Esau had in those days forgotten what Jacob had done to him, and having taken the blessing from him in those days. And when Esau saw Jacob coming to his father and mother, he remembered what Jacob had done to him, and he was greatly incensed against him, and he sought to slay him. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was old and advanced in days. And Esau said, Now my father's time is drawing nigh that he must die, and when he shall die, I will slay my brother Jacob. And this was told to Rebekah, and she hastened, and sent and called for Jacob her son. And she said unto him, Arise, go and flee to Haran to my brother Laban, and remain there for some time, until thy brother's anger be turned from thee.
Okay, we'll pause right here. So we just heard Yacob, fearing Esau and fearing for his life, he left home to protect himself from the wrath of Esau. And he went to Eber. He went to Eber's house. Where was this? In the land of Moriah. Eber dwelt in the land of Moriah. So Yacob, when he was afraid and when he was troubled by his brother, he fled to the land of Moriah, to Eber's house, where he was further schooled in the ways of the Most High. He continued to learn Torah from Eber and from Shem, who was the descendant of Shem. He continued to strengthen his faith and continued to draw nearer to the Most High. Okay, that demonstrates character. Okay, and then we have Esau. Esau was upset with his parents because of what had happened, because he didn't get the blessing that he sold. He didn't get his way. So he left home as well. He went to the land of Seir. And in the land, he met a woman, a Hittite, a Canaanite, and he married her. So you have, on the one hand, you have Yacob living in the house of Eber, learning Torah, learning more about the ways of the Most High, so that he could be transformed into the image of what the Most High intends for him to be. And then you have Esau, who, mad at his parents that he didn't get what he wanted, the blessing, fled and left home and married yet another Canaanite woman, breaking Torah yet again. Okay, so he was gone for about 6 months, and then he ended up coming back home with this wife, with these two wives, these two Canaanite wives who were engaged in all manner of heathen practices. And he brought that into Yitzhak and Rivkah, Isaac and Rebekah's house. Because at that time, they all lived in the same community. Their tents were right next to each other. So they all lived communally, which was wonderful. It sounds really wonderful. But it's not wonderful when you bring someone who is not of the faith into the tents and they're not keeping Torah. Now, strangers lived amongst our ancestors. They did it all the time, but they were required to keep Torah. These ones, they were not. And they vexed Rebekah. They vexed her. So we're just comparing and contrasting character. We see the character of Yacob seeking after the Most High, wanting to be near to the Most High, even in times of trouble. And then we see Esau, angry, mad. And what does he do? He breaks Torah. He breaks it and marries another Canaanite. So after 14 years of being in the house of Eber, you see Yacob coming back home. He missed his parents and he wanted to be with his family. So he comes back home. And Esau, who I guess had forgotten that he hated his brother and that he wanted to kill him, went, "Oh, you're back. Oh, that's right. I hate you and I want to kill you. So let me set about to do that. I cannot wait," he's thinking to himself, "until my father dies," he's thinking, "so that I can carry out my wishes against my brother and kill him." So these are Esau's unrighteous and unholy thoughts. Okay? Rivkah panics because the Most High is giving her indications of what Esau's saying and doing. He's giving her dreams and visions, and he's just letting her know what's going on. He's speaking to her. Interestingly enough, we don't hear Isaac hearing from the Most High in this way. I'm not saying that he's not. The story just doesn't tell us about those things. This account is giving us the perspective of Rebecca being the one who's standing in the gap for Yacob because she loves him. So she is panicked. She's afraid for her son's life. And so she goes to Yacob and she says, you've got to go. You've got to go to Laban, my brother, and marry one of his daughters and live amongst them. You've got to protect yourself from Esau. And it doesn't say it in this account. It says it in the account in the book of Jasher. But Yacob responded to her and said, I will not leave this house without my father's blessing. Talk about honor. Talk about honor. His mother wanted him to just flee in the night and go to protect himself. And even though he wanted to protect himself, he said, without my father telling me, without my father's blessing, I will not leave. Even if it means being in the midst and living among someone who wants to take my life, I will not dishonor my father by just taking off in the middle of the night. I will not do that. So Ribkah says, I will speak with him. So she goes and she talks to her husband and says, listen, these women are vexing me, and I don't want Yacob to marry one such as these, so we got to do something. And so we're going to read about that in the next section.
And Rebekah went in and said to Isaac, I loathe my life because of the 2 daughters of Heth, whom Esau hath taken him as wives. And if Jacob take a wife from among the daughters of the land such as these, for what purpose do I further live? For the daughters of Canaan are evil. And Isaac called Jacob, and blessed him, and admonished him, and said unto him, Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise and go to Mesopotamia, to the house of Bethuel, thy mother's father, and take thee a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, thy mother's brother. And God Almighty bless thee, and increase and multiply thee, that thou mayst become a company of nations, and give thee the blessings of my father Abraham, to thee and to thy seed after thee, that thou mayst inherit the land of thy sojournings, and all the land which God gave to Abraham. Go, my son, in peace. And Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Mesopotamia, to Laban the son of Bethuel, the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob's mother. And it came to pass, after Jacob had arisen to go to Mesopotamia, that the spirit of Rebekah was grieved after her son, and she wept. And Isaac said to Rebekah, My sister, weep not on account of Jacob my son, for he goeth in peace, and in peace will he return. The Most High God will preserve him from all evil, and will be with him, for he will not forsake him all his days. For I know that his ways will be prospered in all things wherever he goeth, until he return in peace to us, and we see him in peace. Fear not on his account, my sister, for he is on the upright path, and he is a perfect man, and he is faithful, and will not perish. Weep not. And Isaac comforted Rebekah on account of her son Jacob, and blessed him. And Isaac finished commanding Jacob and blessing him, and he gave him many gifts, together with silver and gold, and he sent him away. And Jacob hearkened to his father and mother. He kissed them, and arose and went to Padan Aram. And Jacob was 77 years old when he went out from the land of Canaan, from Beersheba.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we'll pause there. This is getting really good. It's all good. Okay, so what we see is Ribkah, going to her husband, Yitzhak, and asking him, petitioning him to convince Yacob to go to Padan Aram in Mesopotamia to take a wife from her people, her family members. And really, she wanted him to be gone. She wanted him to get out of town so he could be protected from Esau. So Yitzhak heard her request and called in Yacob and gave him his blessing, his barakah, to go and take a wife from one of the daughters of Laban. And what he did here is a sign. It's a sign of his growth through this process. Because remember, everyone's growing through this. Rebecca's growing. She's learning how to hear the Most High's voice more clearly. Yacob is growing. Esau's becoming more wicked. But Yitzhak, he's growing as well. And I think, brothers and sisters, it's at this point that he realizes that his wife spared him from making a huge mistake. So when he called in Yacob to give him his blessings, his barakah, to go and seek a wife, what he does here is he commands the blessing of Abraham on him. And no one's forcing him to do it. No one's tricking him. Jacob's not dressed in Esau's clothes. He's looking him in the eye and pronouncing the blessing upon him. And not only does he do that, he gives him riches, gold, silver, bdellium, and sends him on his way to go and seek a bride. He does that. And then after he sends Yacob off, Rebecca, is worried. She misses him. She's concerned for him. She's concerned. She's a mother. She loves him. And Yitzhak comforts her and says, "Don't worry, my sister. Don't worry. I know that the Most High will be with Yacob. He will protect him and guide him in all of his ways." Because here's what he said. He said, "Yacob is a perfect man." He called his son a perfect man. He couldn't see that before. His eyes are clearing. His eyes are less dim. He couldn't see that Yacob was a perfect man and he was going to give the blessing to someone who's far less than perfect. But now he can see. He can see that Yacob is a perfect man and that the Most High is with him. So when he sent him off to go get a bride, he pronounced the blessing on him without anyone holding anything over him, without anyone saying, "Oh, you're being tricked," or "I'm dressed up in Esau's clothes." It wasn't necessary because now Yitzhak can see. He can see. Hallelujah. So he sends him off. He sends him off with riches, with gold, silver, bdellium, and more importantly, with the blessing that he has pronounced upon him without him being dressed up like Esau. That is not something that they show us or demonstrate to us in the Bible. And it's really important that we know that Yacob received the blessing from his father. The first time he was dressed up in Esau's clothes, but the second time he looked him in the eye and gave him the blessing. It's important to note. So we're going to continue on. We're going to see Yacob now heading to Mesopotamia to get a wife, and we'll see what happens to him on the way.
And when Jacob went away to go to Haran, Esau called unto his son Eliphaz, and secretly spoke unto him, saying, Now hasten, take thy sword in thy hand, and pursue Jacob, and pass before him in the road, and lurk for him, and slay him with thy sword in one of the mountains, and take all belonging to him, and come back. And Eliphaz, the son of Esau, was an active man, and expert with the bow, as his father had taught him, and he was a noted hunter in the field, and a valiant man. And Eliphaz did as his father had commanded him, and Eliphaz was at that time 13 years old. And Eliphaz rose up, and went and took 10 of his mother's brothers with him, and pursued Jacob. And he closely followed Jacob, and he lurked for him in the border of the land of Canaan, opposite to the city of Shechem. And Jacob saw Eliphaz and his men pursuing him, and Jacob stood still in the place in which he was going, in order to know what this was, for he did not know the thing. And Eliphaz drew his sword, and he went on advancing, he and his men, toward Jacob. And Jacob said unto them, What is to do with you, that you have come hither? And what meaneth it, that you pursue with your swords? And Eliphaz came near to Jacob, and he answered and said unto him, Thus did my father command me, and now therefore I will not deviate from the orders which my father gave me. And when Jacob saw that Esau had spoken to Eliphaz to employ force, Jacob then approached, and supplicated Eliphaz and his men, saying to him, Behold, all that I have, and which my father and mother gave unto me, that take unto thee, and go from me, and do not slay me, and may this thing be accounted unto thee a righteousness. And the Lord caused Jacob to find favor in the sight of Eliphaz the son of Esau, and his men, and they hearkened to the voice of Jacob, and they did not put him to death. And Eliphaz and his men took all belonging to Jacob, together with the silver and gold that he had brought with him from Beersheba. They left him nothing. And Eliphaz and his men went away from him, and they returned to Esau to Beersheba, and they told him all that had occurred to them with Jacob, and they gave him all that they had taken from Jacob. And Esau was indignant at Eliphaz his son, and at his men that were with him, because they had not put Jacob to death. And they answered and said unto Esau, Because Jacob supplicated us in this matter not to slay him, our pity was excited toward him. And we took all belonging to him, and brought it unto thee. And Esau took all the silver and gold which Eliphaz had taken from Jacob, and he put them by in his house. At that time, when Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and had commanded him, saying, Thou shalt not take a wife from amongst the daughters of Canaan, and that the daughters of Canaan were bad in the sight of Isaac and Rebekah, then he went to the house of Ishmael his uncle, and in addition to his older wives, he took Machlath, the daughter of Ishmael, the sister of Nebaioth, for a wife.
Okay, pausing once again. So, we see that Esau is even more wicked than we knew him to be. So when he saw that his father granted Yacob the blessing without any hesitation, he didn't like it. When he saw that his father and mother granted Yacob good favor and sent him on his way to get a bride from the house of Laban, and had given him gold and silver and bdellium and riches in their good favor, he didn't like it. So what did he do? He sent his 13-year-old son, whom he had taught the arts of hunting and stalking, after Yacob. He didn't go himself. He sent his son to go and kill his uncle. That's Esau. That's his character. The Most High granted Yacob favor. Eliphaz and his 10 brothers, when they arrived on the scene to kill Yacob and take everything that he had, the Most High caused them to respond favorably to his pleas, to his supplications, as he said, Don't kill me. Please don't kill me. I'll give you everything. Don't kill me. And then it'll be counted to you as a righteousness. Okay? So the Most High allowed them to have an open heart, and they responded well to him, and they didn't kill him. They took his gold, his silver, his bdellium, everything that his father had just given to him, and everything he had, his own gold, his own silver, everything. Scripture says they took everything. Okay, remember, that's Esau. Esau takes it all, even the crumb. So they left him with nothing. And so he's on his way to go and get a bride with nothing. And now we know why it was necessary for Yacob to work for Laban for a bride. He had no money to offer a bride price. Typically, you would present an offering to the father of something of value to demonstrate that you were serious about the woman that you wanted to marry, so that you could compensate the father for the loss of the labor of his daughter. Okay, and so that you could show that she had worth and value in your eyes. So now we know why he had to work and engage in labor in order to get a wife, because his brother took everything. Jacob at this point was 77 years old, and everything that he had accomplished and managed to gain in his life was gone. It was all gone. And once again, he has to start over. Okay? But the Most High is with him. And we're going to see the Most High's faithfulness to him as we continue on in the next section.
Chapter 30. And Jacob went forth continuing his road to Haran, and he came as far as Mount Moriah, and he tarried there all night near the city of Luz. And the Lord appeared there unto Jacob on that night, and he said unto him, I am the Lord God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac thy father. The land upon which thou liest I will give unto thee and thy seed. And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee wherever thou goest, and I will multiply thy seed as the stars of heaven, and I will cause all thine enemies to fall before thee. And when they shall make war with thee, they shall not prevail over thee. And I will bring thee again unto this land with joy, with children, and with great riches. And he dreamt that night, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold, the angels of the Lord ascended and descended on it, and behold, the Lord stood upon it. And he spake to Jacob, and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham thy father, and the God of Isaac. The land whereon thou art sleeping, to thee shall I give it, and to thy seed after thee. And thy seed will be as the dust of the earth, and thou wilt increase to the west, and to the east, to the north, and the south. And in thee and in thy seed will all the families of the nations be blessed. And behold, I shall be with thee, and shall keep thee whithersoever thou goest. And I shall bring thee again into this land in peace, for I shall not leave thee until I do everything that I told thee of. And Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, Truly this place is the house of the Lord, and I knew it not. And he was afraid, and said, Dreadful is this place, which is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And Jacob arose early in the morning, and took the stone which he had put under his head, and set it up as a pillar for a sign, and he poured oil upon the top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the place was Luz at the first. And Jacob vowed a vow unto the Lord, saying, If the Lord will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God, and this stone which I have set up as a pillar for a sign in this place shall be the Lord's house, and of all that thou givest me, I shall give the tenth to thee, my God.
Okay, we'll pause here. We see Yacob with nothing. We see him with no possessions, no silver, no gold, on his way to Haran to procure a wife. And in his traveling, he ends up at Mount Moriah, near the city of Luz. And the Most High appears to him that night as he's laying there. He has nothing. He has nothing. Everything's been taken away from him. And so as he's lying there, sleeping, the Most High grants him a vision or visitation or something of that nature. And he sees angels ascending and descending in this location. And he hears the voice of the Most High speak to him and make him promises, telling him that he will be with him. And that because of him, all families of the earth will be baruched and blessed. Just as he told Abraham that all families of the earth will be baruched because of him, now he's telling Yacob this. But he said, to you and your seed. Brothers and sisters, we are that seed. We are the seed of Yacob. We are the children of Yacob, the children of Yasharal. It is through us that the world will be baruched. Through us and through MessiYah, who is also a son of Yacob. So in the promises that the Most High is making to Yacob, we can see our role as kings and priests in this world, and that the ministry that has been committed unto us, the Most High will use that to bring barakah to those in the world. It is because of us that we're able to present the Gentiles to the Father as an offering. It is because of our ministry, because of the ministry of Jacob's seed, Yahusha, and those who fall under him, under his rulership. So this is what we see, a promise given, a promise kept, okay? And the location. It can't be lost on us once again that this is Mount Moriah, which in a previous lesson we learned Mount Moriah is Mount Zion. So the location of where all of this is happening is very likely within the region of where the city of Jerusalem was or would be. It's very likely because we know that Mount Zion is within the city of Jerusalem, the larger city, and we know that the temple, the house of the Most High, was at Jerusalem. And Jacob said, this is the house of the Most High. And so it's very likely that he was in the city, within the city of what would become the city of Jerusalem, and having that experience there. Maybe he was sleeping in the set apart or Holy of Holies. Maybe that's where he was, in the area of land that would become the Holy of Holies. We don't know, but it seems likely. It seems very likely to me. There's another interesting thing that we see here in this account of Yacob. He sees a ladder that is stretched all the way to the Shamayim, to heaven, and he sees angels ascending and descending upon this ladder, going up into heaven. And what's interesting about this is that in the promise that the Most High is making to Yacob right now, to extend the blessing of the barakah of Abraham to him, from Isaac to now Yacob, and then from Yacob to his descendants. What we see is the Most High granting Yacob a picture, an image of a future ancestor, an ancestor who is both divine and will be human, that will come from his loins. So the picture that we see of the ladder that stretches to the heaven and angels ascending and descending upon it is the Son of Man. MessiYah tells us in the book of John chapter 1, he says, hereafter you shall see the Shamayim, the heavens, open, and angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man. So the ladder that stretches from heaven to earth, that is the link between heaven and earth, is Yahusha himself. So when the Father gave Yacob this image of this ladder with the angels ascending and descending, he was giving him special insight into the heavenly realm to allow him to see what was coming. His descendant in the form of Yahushua HaMashiach, both divine and human. It's really wonderful that the very person who would come from his loins would end up being his Savior and our Savior. To allow Yacob to see his future Savior and his future descendant all in one picture, one wonderful spiritual picture of the salvation of Yasharal right there on a night that he has been robbed by his brother and left penniless and sitting with his head resting upon a rock. A rock, brothers and sisters, a stone. And that rock was MessiYah. His head rested upon the rock. And then the next morning, when he awakened, he set up that same rock as a pillar and a sign of the covenant that he had just made with the Father. So the rock, the stone, Yahusha, is the sign of the covenant. He is the sign of the covenant. He is the covenant himself. So when you sum all of this up, one of the bottom lines is this. The Most High came to Yacob when he was at his lowest, and he made him a promise. And Yacob said, if you'll be with me, if you'll provide for me, if you'll feed me, if you'll provide clothes for me and take care of me, then I promise that you will be my Alua, and I will serve you, and I will give you a tenth, a tithe of all that I have. And we saw Abraham giving the Most High a tithe, a tenth. Where'd that concept come from? This was before the law had been given, right? He learned it from Shem. He learned it from Eber. Because I believe the law and all the concepts within the law were given in the garden. Hallelujah. So we're going to continue on and see what happens to Yacob after he leaves this place. We're going to see him go and find his way to Laban. And he obviously has no money, so he works for the hand of Rachel. And we see him make an agreement with Laban to work 7 years for the hand of his youngest daughter, Rachel. Rachel and Leah were twins. I'm not sure if many people know that, but they were twins. And so Laban tricked Yacob and ended up giving him Leah as a wife and not Rachel. And so he ended up working another 7 years so that he could also marry Rachel. So 14 years of his life was spent working to procure a wife. And in the process of time, Laban cheated him, changed his wages several times, and took advantage of him. But the Most High's hand was on Yacob, blessing him and keeping him. And then the father told Yacob, it's time for you to leave this place. It's time for you to go home. Get up, get your children, get your cattle, get everything, and it's time to go home. And so Yacob got his family, his wives, his children, his servants, and they're headed home. But they did not tell Laban that they were going. Okay, so Laban came after them because Rachel had taken Laban's idols. She had taken her father's idols. She said it was because she didn't want him to be able to consult the idols and then find out where they were. But we don't know. We don't know if she had a liking to them. We just don't know that. But be that as it may, she took the idols, and so he's coming after them to get his idols back and to see why they left, because Laban recognized that as long as Jacob was with him, he was blessed, he was baruched. He experienced good fortune as long as Jacob was there. As long as Jacob was with him, he saw himself being favored by the Most High. He did not want to lose that. And brothers and sisters, when it's time for us to leave the places to which we've been scattered, the nations won't want to let us go. They don't want to let us go now because they realize that they have been favored because of our presence. They've been favored by the Most High. But the time of that favor is ending because the Most High is saying, Pharaohs of the world, let my people go. And so we see Yacob leaves. In the middle of the night, without warning, he leaves. And here comes, in Pharaoh-like style, Laban coming after Yacob to see if he could convince him to come back. And when he realizes that he can't convince him to come back, he says, well, then let me enter into a covenant with you. If I enter into covenant with you, I'll still be able to partake of blessings because of my association with you. So that's where the story will pick up at this point.
And Jacob and Laban offered sacrifice upon the mount, and they ate there by the heap, and they tarried in the mount all night. And Laban rose up early in the morning, and he wept with his daughters, and he kissed them, and he returned unto his place. And he hastened, and sent off his son Beor, who was 17 years old, with Abicharov the son of Uz, the son of Nahor, and with them were 10 men. And they hastened, and went and passed on the road before Jacob, and they came by another road to the land of Seir. And they came unto Esau, and said unto him, Thus said thy brother and relative, thy mother's brother Laban, the son of Bethuel, saying, Hast thou heard what Jacob thy brother has done unto me, who first came to me naked and bare? And I went to meet him, and brought him to my house with honor, and I made him great, and I gave him my 2 daughters for wives, and also 2 of my maids. And God blessed him on my account, and he increased abundantly, and had sons, daughters, and maidservants. He has also an immense stock of flocks and herds, camels and asses, also silver and gold in abundance. And when he saw that his wealth increased, he left me whilst I went to shear my sheep, and he rose up and fled in secrecy. And he lifted his wives and children upon camels, and he led away all his cattle and property which he acquired in my land. And he lifted up his countenance to go to his father Isaac, to the land of Canaan. And he did not suffer me to kiss my daughters and their children, and he led my daughters as captives taken by the sword, and he also stole my gods, and he fled. And now I have left him in the mountain of the brook of Jabbok, him and all belonging to him. He lacked nothing. If it be thy wish to go to him, go then, and there wilt thou find him, and thou canst do unto him as thy soul desireth. And Laban's messengers came and told Esau all these things. And Esau heard all the words of Laban's messengers, and his anger was greatly kindled against Jacob, and he remembered his hatred, and his anger burned within him. And Esau hastened and took his children and servants, and the souls of his household, being 60 men. And he went and assembled all the children of Seir the Horite, and their people, being 340 men, and took all this number of 400 men with drawn swords, and he went unto Jacob to smite him. And Esau divided this number into several parts, and he took the 60 men of his children and servants, and the souls of his household as one head, and gave them in care of Eliphaz, his eldest son. And the remaining heads he gave to the care of the 6 sons of Seir the Horite, and he placed every man over his generations and children. And the whole of his camp went as it was, and Esau went amongst them toward Jacob, and he conducted them with speed. And Laban's messengers departed from Esau, and went to the land of Canaan, and they came to the house of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. And they told her, saying, Behold, thy son Esau has gone against his brother Jacob with 400 men, for he heard that he was coming, and he is gone to make war with him, and to smite him, and to take all that he has. And Rebekah hastened and sent 72 men from the servants of Isaac to meet Jacob on the road, for she said, Peradventure, Esau may make war on the road when he meets him. And these messengers went on the road to meet Jacob, and they met him in the road of the brook on the opposite side of the brook Jabbok. And Jacob said when he saw them, This camp is destined to me from God. And Jacob called the name of that place Machnaim. And Jacob knew all his father's people, and he kissed them and embraced them, and came with them. And Jacob asked them concerning his father and mother, and they said, They were well. And these messengers said unto Jacob, Rebekah thy mother has sent us to thee, saying, I have heard, my son, that thy brother Esau has gone forth against thee on the road with men from the children of Seir the Horite. And therefore, my son, hearken to my voice, and see with thy counsel, what thou wilt do, and when he cometh up to thee, supplicate him, and do not speak rashly to him, and give him a present from what thou possessest, and from what God has favored thee with. And when he asketh thee concerning thy affairs, conceal nothing from him. Perhaps he may turn from his anger against thee, and thou wilt thereby save thy soul, thou and all belonging to thee, for it is thy duty to honor him, for he is thy elder brother. And when Jacob heard the words of his mother, which the messengers had spoken to him, Jacob lifted up his voice and wept bitterly, and did as his mother then commanded him.
Okay, we'll pause right here. So we see Laban, sneaky, deceptive Laban, Jacob's father-in-law. He had just entered into a covenant with Yacob. Okay, and in a covenant relationship, you agree to look out for one another. You agree that there's going to be peace between you and the person that you're entering into the covenant with. No sooner had he entered into this covenant with Yacob and erected stones as a sign of this covenant, did he find his way to Esau's men, Esau's people, and tell Esau a lie. Lots of huge lies about Yacob, about how Yacob stole his family, his daughters, how he stole from him, how he was dishonest, and how he had stolen his cattle, and all manner of lies regarding Yacob. Laban looked Yacob in the face and entered into covenant with him, and then behind his back he lies and then enters into a confederacy against him. That is what happened to us as a nation of people, the Psalm 83 Confederacy. You had many of our relatives, distant cousins, descendants of Abraham, who entered into a league with one another to cut us off from being a nation. They hate us, they are jealous of us, and they never wanted us to be all that the Most High intended for us to be. Just like Laban and Esau, they do not want Jacob to be what the Most High is calling him to be. So we see a foreshadowing right here of that Psalm 83 alliance coming together against us, the descendants of Jacob. So he lied. Laban lied. He straight up lied. And so Esau now has justification for his continual hatred for Jacob. Oh, as if he didn't already steal my birthright, he's thinking. He's stealing women and children, and he's taking advantage of old men. Now I'm really going to kill him. So Esau receives the justification that he needs to continue his hatred for his brother. Ribkah, she hears about what's happening, so she sends men to try and help her son. She sends the relatives, as many as she could muster up, she sends to go and help him. And when Jacob sees them, his heart is delighted. He feels like he's back home. He's seeing his family members from back home, and he's feeling really happy to see them. But then he has to hear the news that Esau's gunning for you. Esau's coming after you with 400 men. 400, the number of trial and testing. So Jacob's being majorly tested right now, and the Most High is going to see how he responds. So the number of men that Jacob has versus the number of men that Esau has is nothing in comparison. Esau would likely win the battle. Rebekah also instructs Jacob to not defend himself with Esau, but to treat him with honor and respect as the elder brother. He's not acting like one who is worthy of respect and honor, but Ribkah is saying, honor him as the older brother. Don't lie. Tell him exactly what's happening with you. If he asks you a question, give him the answer, and then prepare a gift for him to honor him as the older brother. Perhaps you'll spare your life and he'll have mercy on you. Okay? So this is where we see Jacob crying out in the situation and the circumstance that he finds himself in. He's been gone 20 years, and still he comes back to this perpetual, continual hatred from his brother and a desire to kill him. I'm sure he's weary of it by now, just as we are weary of the confederacy against us. So let's continue on and see what happens.
Chapter 32. And at that time, Jacob sent messengers to his brother Esau toward the land of Seir, and he spoke to him words of supplication. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye say to my lord, to Esau, Thus saith thy servant Jacob, Let not my Lord imagine that my father's blessing with which he did bless me has proved beneficial to me. For I have been these 20 years with Laban, and he deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, as it has all been already told unto my Lord. And I served him in his house very laboriously, and God afterward saw my affliction, my labor, and the work of my hands, and he caused me to find grace and favor in his sight. And afterward, through God's great mercy and kindness, acquired oxen, and asses, and cattle, and menservants and maidservants. And now I am coming to my land, and my home to my father and mother, who are in the land of Canaan. And I have sent to let my Lord know all this in order to find favor in the sight of my Lord, so that he may not imagine that I have of myself obtained wealth, or that the blessing with which my father blessed me has benefited me. And those messengers went to Esau, and found him on the borders of the land of Edom, going toward Jacob, and 400 men of the children of Seir the Horite were standing with drawn swords. And the messengers of Jacob told Esau all the words that Jacob had spoken to them concerning Esau. And Esau answered them with pride and contempt, and said unto them, Surely I have heard, and truly it has been told unto me what Jacob has done to Laban, who exalted him in his house, and gave him his daughters for wives, and he begat sons and daughters, and abundantly increased in wealth and riches in Laban's house through his means. And when he saw that his wealth was abundant, and his riches great, he fled with all belonging to him from Laban's house. And he led Laban's daughters away from the face of their father as captives taken by the sword, without telling him of it. And not only to Laban has Jacob done thus, but also unto me has he done so, and has twice supplanted me. And shall I be silent? Now therefore, I have this day come with my camps to meet him, and I will do unto him according to the desire of my heart. And the messengers returned, and came to Jacob, and said unto him, We came to thy brother, to Esau, and we told him all thy words, and thus has he answered us. And behold, he cometh to meet thee with 400 men. Now then, know and see what thou shalt do, and pray before God to deliver thee from him. And when he heard the words of his brother, which he had spoken to the messengers of Jacob, Jacob was greatly afraid, and he was distressed. And Jacob prayed to the Lord his God, and he said, O Lord, God of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, thou didst say unto me, when I went away from my father's house, saying, I am the Lord, God of thy father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. Unto thee do I give this land, and thy seed after thee, and I will make thy seed as the stars of heaven, and thou shalt spread forth to the four sides of heaven. And in thee, and in thy seed, shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And thou didst establish thy words, and didst give unto me riches and children, and cattle, as the utmost wishes of my heart didst thou give unto thy servant. Thou didst give unto me all that I asked from thee, so that I lacked nothing. And thou didst afterward say unto me, Return to thy parents, and to thy birthplace, and I will still do well with thee. And now that I have come, and thou didst deliver me from Laban, I shall fall in the hands of Esau, who will slay me, yea, together with the mothers of my children. Now, therefore, O Lord God, deliver me, I pray thee, also from the hands of my brother Esau, for I am greatly afraid of him. And if there is no righteousness in me, do it for the sake of Abraham and my father Isaac. For I know that through kindness and mercy have I acquired this wealth. Now therefore, I beseech thee to deliver me this day with thy kindness, and to answer me. And Jacob ceased praying to the Lord, and he divided the people that were with him, with the flocks and cattle, into 2 camps. And he gave the half to the care of Damasek, the son of Eleazar, Abraham's servant, for a camp, with his children. And the other half he gave to the care of his brother Elias, the son of Eleazar, to be for a camp with his children. And he commanded them, saying, Keep yourselves at a distance with your camps, and do not come too near each other. And if Esau come to one camp and slay it, the other camp at a distance from it will escape him. And Jacob tarried there that night, and during the whole night he gave his servants instructions concerning the forces and his children. And the Lord heard the prayer of Jacob on that day, and the Lord then delivered Jacob from the hands of his brother Esau. And the Lord sent 3 angels of the angels of heaven, and they went before Esau, and came to him. And these angels appeared unto Esau and his people as 2,000 men, riding upon horses, furnished with all sorts of war instruments. And they appeared in the sight of Esau and all his men to be divided into 4 camps, with 4 chiefs to them. And one camp went on, and they found Esau coming with 400 men toward his brother Jacob. And this camp ran toward Esau and his people, and terrified them. And Esau fell off the horse in alarm. And all his men separated from him in that place, for they were greatly afraid. And the whole of the camp shouted after them, when they fled from Esau. And all the warlike men answered, saying, Surely we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God. And who then can stand against us? And Esau said unto them, O then, my lord and brother Jacob is your lord, whom I have not seen for these 20 years. And now that I have this day come to see him, do you treat me in this manner? And the angels answered him, saying, As the Lord liveth, were not Jacob of whom thou speakest thy brother, we had not let one remaining from thee and thy people, but only on account of Jacob will we do nothing to them. And this camp passed from Esau and his men, and it went away. And Esau and his men had gone from them about a league, when the second camp came toward him, with all sorts of weapons. And they also did unto Esau and his men, as the first camp had done to them. And when they had left it to go on, behold, the third camp came toward him, and they were all terrified. And Esau fell off the horse, and the whole camp cried out and said, Surely we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God, and who can stand against us? And Esau again answered them, saying, O then, Jacob my lord, and your lord is my brother. And for 20 years I have not seen his countenance, and hearing this day that he was coming, I went this day to meet him. And do you treat me in this manner? And they answered him, and said unto him, As the Lord liveth, were not Jacob thy brother, as thou didst say, we had not left a remnant from thee, and thy men, but on account of Jacob, of whom thou speakest being thy brother, we will not meddle with thee or thy men. And the third camp also passed from them, and he still continued his road with his men toward Jacob, when the fourth camp came toward him, and they also did unto him and his men as the others had done. And when Esau beheld the evil which the 4 angels had done to him and to his men, he became greatly afraid of his brother Jacob, and he went to meet him in peace. And Esau concealed his hatred against Jacob, because he was afraid of his life on account of his brother Jacob, and because he imagined that the 4 camps that he had lighted upon were Jacob's servants. And he passed before his children and wives to meet his brother, and he bowed down to the ground. Yea, he bowed down 7 times until he approached his brother. And God caused Jacob to find grace and favor in the sight of Esau and his men, for God had heard the prayer of Jacob. And the fear of Jacob and his terror fell upon his brother Esau, for Esau was greatly afraid of Jacob for what the angels of God had done to Esau, and Esau's anger against Jacob was turned into kindness.
Okay, we're going to pause right there. The Most High is so good. He's so faithful. So we see the Most High delivering Yacob from the hand of Laban, this wicked and unjust man who was using Yacob for his labor and not wanting to compensate him properly. So you could see Jacob's time with Laban as a type of slavery. You could see it that way, as a type of slavery. He wasn't wanting to compensate him properly, but Jacob left Laban in the middle of the night, as it were, as if he was gathered out from Laban, and he left with great substance. What does that sound like, brothers and sisters? Sounds like our gathering. The Most High gathered Jacob out of the wicked situation of Laban and was bringing him back into his homeland. It sounds like our gathering. But he didn't leave empty-handed. He left with riches and wealth and servants, and he left with cattle. He left with substance. The Most High had baruched him and was sending him back home. Hallelujah. So, just when it looks as if things are going well for Jacob, he's headed back home. He's got riches, he's got wealth, he's got 2 wives, he's got children. He's doing well for himself. The Most High is baruching him and making his promises to him come true. Then comes the word that Esau, with 400 men, is gunning for him. And so Jacob is almost in despair. He's thinking, what now? The Most High has delivered me from the hand of Laban just to bring this long-standing enemy, my brother, against me? So Jacob does what he knows to do. He sends a messenger to Esau to explain, I know I received the blessing, but it's not been easy for me. It's been hard. I've been with Laban these past 20 years, and he's robbed me and stolen from me and mistreated me, and we left. I took my wives and I left, honestly. So his servant relayed those things to Esau, and Esau answered him, Scripture says, with pride and contempt. And he did not believe anything the servant said. So he essentially said, tell my brother I'm coming for him, and I'm coming for him with 400 men, and he's coming to take his life. That was his intention. So when the messenger arrived back at Yacob, Yacob did what only Yacob could do at this point. He prayed. He went to the Most High in prayer, and he reminded the Most High of his goodness. Hallelujah. He reminded the Most High of his mercy and of his grace. And he reminded the Most High of his promises. The promises that he made to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob himself. He reminded him. He said, Father, you promised me that I would be a great nation. You promised me that my descendants would be as the sand of the seashore and as the sky, the stars in the sky. You promised me that you would bring me back into this land. You promised me that you would fight my battles. You promised me that you would prosper me. You promised me that my seed would be a barakah in the earth. You promised. You promised. And if you won't do it for me, do it for Abraham's sake. Do it for Yitzhak's sake. Save me from this enemy. Save me from this enemy. And the scripture says, the Father heard Jacob's pleas and his cry, and he answered him. He sent help. And this is how it's going to be with us, brothers and sisters. Once we get back into our land, an enemy is coming against us, and we will cry out to the Most High, and we will remind the Most High of his goodness and of his promises and of the kingdom that is to come. And he will send Yahusha to deliver us when that day comes. But here we see types and shadows of these things, manifestations of foreshadowing of the things that were then at that point, and are to come. So we see these things happening, and we can look to them and know that if the Most High was faithful to Jacob then, he will be faithful to us when the time comes and we're back in our land and an enemy is coming against us, the descendants of Esau, once again. So the Most High sent 3 angels, and he sent them out toward Esau and his 400 men, Horites. And when they saw these 3 angels, it looked to them as if they were 2,000 men divided up into 4 companies, with a leader of each company. So the first company approached unto Esau, and he explained, I am the servant of Jacob, and here I am with these men, and they have their weapons, many weapons, being displayed and glistening in the sun. And Esau saw them, and he was afraid. He was very afraid. He was like, oh, so you're Jacob's servants? You, all of you men, you mean all of you soldiers, you're with Jacob? I thought I was going to be able to overtake him with my 400 men, but look at you. And then he kept riding. He ran into yet another company of soldiers with swords drawn and weapons. And by the time he got to the 4th company, he was shaking in his boots. And he thought to himself, surely I must make peace with my brother, because if I don't, he will surely, with all of this weaponry, he will kill me. So he had to humble himself. When I would read the scriptures in the past, in the book of Genesis, as it told the story, I always wondered why it was when Esau met up with Jacob finally, he was so kind to him. Now we know why. He wasn't kind because he is a kind person. He was kind because he was scared. He was scared. He was frightened, and he knew that those who were for Jacob was greater than his 400 Horite men. He knew that. And so he knew that he needed to make peace with his brother, or else he would die. And he did so. For a time, he did so. And brothers and sisters, this is an encouragement to us at this time, that trouble don't last always. It's not going to always be like this for us. Eventually, the Most High will make even those who hate you to be at peace with you when your ways please the Most High. And Jacob's ways pleased the Most High, and he fought for him, and he will fight for us, his descendants, when our ways are pleasing to him. Hallelujah. So we're going to continue on, and we're going to see Esau, his encounter with Jacob. And Esau has been sufficiently humbled. Now he's willing to allow some level of compassion and care to come from his heart toward his brother, because he is scared. He's frightened The Most High is demonstrated to Jacob's enemies that he is for Jacob. And just as he is for Jacob, he is for us. Hallelujah. Let's continue on.
And when Esau saw Jacob running toward him, he also ran toward him, and he embraced him, and he fell upon his neck, and they kissed and they wept. And God put fear and kindness toward Jacob in the hearts of the men that came with Esau, and they also kissed Jacob and embraced him. And also Eliphaz, the son of Esau, with his 4 brothers, sons of Esau, wept with Jacob, and they kissed him and embraced him, for the fear of Jacob had fallen upon them all. And Esau lifted up his eyes, and saw the women with their offspring, the children of Jacob, walking behind Jacob, and bowing along the road to Esau. And Esau said unto Jacob, Who are these with thee, my brother? Are they thy children, or thy servants? And Jacob answered Esau and said, They are my children, which God hath graciously given to thy servant. And whilst Jacob was speaking to Esau and his men, Esau beheld the whole camp, and he said unto Jacob, Whence didst thou get the whole of the camp that I met yesternight? And Jacob said, To find favor in the sight of my Lord, it is that which God graciously gave to thy servant.
Okay, we'll pause here, brothers and sisters. So what we see here in this past section, we saw Esau humbling himself before Jacob. He was afraid of the angelic hosts that looked like mighty armies before him. And so it forced him to show a level of compassion toward his brother, Jacob. And when he saw him, they embraced and they hugged and they acted like family, probably for the first time since they had become adult men. And Jacob was so happy. And I wonder if he ever knew at any point what the Most High had done for him, how the Most High performed this miracle and sent the 3 angels to defend him and to show Esau that those who were for Jacob were much greater than those who were against him. It just makes you wonder if he ever knew, if he ever got the information from the Most High before he passed on, or if he had to find out about it once he got into glory. We don't know. But we do see here that Esau is showing some humanity toward his brethren, and he's meeting his brother, and he's meeting his wives and his children, and it's like a family reunion, and they're showing kindness to Jacob. And in addition to that, all the people that came along with Esau, the Horite men and all of Esau's family members, they're showing kindness to Jacob as well. And it reminds me of the favor and the barakah that's going to happen to us, brothers and sisters, that's going to come upon us once we get back into the land. The Most High is going to cause people to come and bow at our feet. He's going to come and cause them to give into our bosom to help us to rebuild our land and to give us such things as we need. They're going to celebrate when the Most High once again restores his people, because the salvation of Yasharal is the salvation of the world. The Most High has assigned it to be that. The world is waiting, awaiting our ministry. It's waiting for us to step up and step out and do what the Most High has called us to do. Finally this time, finally getting it right. And so it's wonderful to see those who are allowed to survive will be happy for Yasharal when Yasharal begins to rise. Hallelujah. So in this next section, we see Father Yitzhak at 180 years old. He's on his deathbed, and he's called his family around him, and he's telling them things that they need to know. He's once again reiterating the need to keep Torah, and he's sharing with them the things that his father Abraham had shared with him. So he's telling them all of this on his deathbed as he is dying, and we see him surrounded by his family members. So that's where we'll pick up.
And when Isaac had finished commanding Jacob and his children, he gave up the ghost and died, and was gathered unto his people. And Jacob and Esau fell upon the face of their father Isaac, and they wept. And Isaac was 180 years old when he died in the land of Canaan, in Hebron. And his sons carried him to the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for a possession of a burial place. And all the kings of the land of Canaan went with Jacob and Esau to bury Isaac. And all the kings of Canaan showed Isaac great honor at his death. And the sons of Jacob and the sons of Esau went barefooted round about, walking and lamenting until they reached Kiriath Arba. And Jacob and Esau buried their father Isaac in the cave of Machpelah, which is in Kiriath Arba in Hebron. And they buried him with very great honor, as at the funeral of kings. And Jacob and his sons, and Esau and his sons, and all the kings of Canaan, made a great and heavy mourning, and they buried him, and mourned for him many days. And at the death of Isaac, he left his cattle and his possessions, and all belonging to him, to his sons. And Esau said unto Jacob, Behold, I pray thee, all that our father has left, we will divide it in 2 parts, and I will have the choice. And Jacob said, We will do so. And Jacob took all that Isaac had left in the land of Canaan, the cattle and the property, and he placed them in 2 parts before Esau and his sons. And he said unto Esau, Behold, all this is before thee. Choose thou unto thyself the half which thou wilt take. And Jacob said unto Esau, Hear thou, I pray thee, what I will speak unto thee, saying, The Lord God of heaven and earth spoke unto our fathers Abraham and Isaac, saying, Unto thy seed will I give this land for an inheritance forever. Now therefore, all that our father has left is before thee, and behold, all the land is before thee. Choose thou from them what thou desirest. If thou desirest the whole land, take it for thee and thy children forever, and I will take this riches. And if thou desirest the riches, take it unto thee, and I will take this land for me and for my children, to inherit it forever. And Nebaioth, the son of Ishmael, was then in the land with his children, and Esau went on that day, and consulted with him, saying, Thus has Jacob spoken unto me, and thus has he answered me. Now give thy advice, and we will hear. And Nebaioth said, What is this that Jacob hath spoken unto thee? Behold, all the children of Canaan are dwelling securely in their land, and Jacob saith he will inherit it with his seed all the days. Go now, therefore, and take all thy father's riches, and leave Jacob thy brother in the land, as he has spoken. And Esau rose up, and returned to Jacob, and did all that Nebaioth the son of Ishmael had advised. And Esau took all the riches that Isaac had left, the souls, the beasts, the cattle, and the property, and all the riches. He gave nothing to his brother Jacob. And Jacob took all the land of Canaan, from the brook of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and he took it for an everlasting possession, and for his children, and for his seed after him forever. Jacob also took from his brother Esau the cave of Machpelah, which is in Hebron, which Abraham had bought from Ephron, for a possession of a burial place, for him and his seed forever. And Jacob wrote all these things in the book of purchase, and he signed it, and he testified all this with 4 faithful witnesses. And these are the words which Jacob wrote in the book, saying, The land of Canaan, and all the cities of the Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, all the 7 nations from the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates, and the city of Hebron, Kiriath Arba, and the cave which is in it, the whole did Jacob buy from his brother Esau for value, for a possession, and for an inheritance for his seed after him forever. And Jacob took the book of purchase, and the signature, the command and the statutes, and the revealed book, and he placed them in an earthen vessel in order that they should remain for a long time, and he delivered them into the hands of his children. Esau took all that his father had left him after his death from his brother Jacob, and he took all the property, from man and beast, camel and ass, ox and lamb, silver and gold, stones and bdellium, and all the riches which had belonged to Isaac the son of Abraham. There was nothing left which Esau did not take unto himself, from all that Isaac had left after his death. And Esau took all this, and he and his children went home to the land of Seir, the Horite, away from his brother Jacob and his children.
Okay, we'll pause here. It bears mentioning that Esau promised and promised himself as soon as his father died that he would kill Yacob. But because of what happened in the wilderness, because of what happened when he saw those angelic beings and the armies, obviously now he has no desire to kill Yacob. His father has died, but he is deciding to live at peace with Yacob. And we are thankful for that, finally. But what we see here is at Yitzhak's death, we see Yacob offering Esau a choice. You can take the land that's been promised, or you can take all of the riches. Choose. So Esau consulted Ishmael's son, and Ishmael's son said, Well, why would you take the land? The Canaanites own this land. Jacob thinks he's going to own it, but he's probably never going to own it. I don't see the Canaanites going anywhere, so you'd be foolish to take the land that belongs to someone else. You should take the riches. So Esau comes back and he says, Okay, I'll take the riches. I want everything. So everything that Abraham left to Yitzhak and the Yitzhak had accrued for himself, he took it all. Esau got all the animals. He got the servants. He got the gold. He got the silver. He got the bdellium. He got everything. Okay? He took it to himself. The things he didn't get, the land of Canaan, the promised land, went to Yacob, and also the cave of Machpelah. Okay? The double cave of Machpelah that Abraham purchased. Okay? Those are the things that Yacob got. Yacob wrote all of this down on parchments and hid them in stone pots to protect them, knowing his brother, to protect them for posterity's sake. I just wanted to mention here what the division was. Esau took everything of value, everything of worth, but he did not and could not see the worth and the value in the land. Because in order to see the worth and the value in the land, you had to have faith. You had to believe in the promises of the Most High. You had to believe that when the Most High said, this land will belong to you and your descendants, and it will be the promised land, you had to believe the Most High. And when you believe Him, it's accounted unto you for righteousness, just like it was with our father Abraham. And so Esau had no faith. He couldn't believe. He could only believe in what his eyes could see. So he took the riches, he took the wealth, he took the camels, he took the asses, and he took the gold and the silver and the bdellium. He took all of those things. But Jacob got a promised land, the land where the future temple would be, the land where the kingdom of heaven, when it comes down to earth and is headquartered, will be headquartered in this land. The land that we're soon about to return to, that land, the land of promise. Hallelujah. So, we're going to see in this next section why and how Esau's character continues to demonstrate itself as being wickedness, and Jacob's is being righteous. In this next section, we see Jacob's death, and we see the continued wickedness of Esau after Jacob dies. We're going to see that demonstrated in this next section.
And the report reached Esau, saying, Jacob died in Egypt, and his sons and all Egypt are conveying him to the land of Canaan to bury him. And Esau heard this thing, and he was dwelling in Mount Seir, and he rose up with his sons, and all his people, and all his household, a people exceedingly great, and they came to mourn and weep over Jacob. And it came to pass, when Esau came, he mourned for his brother Jacob, and all Egypt and all Canaan again rose up and mourned a great mourning with Esau over Jacob in that place. And Joseph and his brethren brought their father Jacob from that place, and they went to Hebron to bury Jacob in the cave by his fathers. And they came unto Kiriath Arba to the cave, and as they came, Esau stood with his sons against Joseph and his brethren, as a hindrance in the cave, saying, Jacob shall not be buried therein, for it belongeth to us and our father. And Joseph and his brethren heard the words of Esau's sons, and they were exceedingly wroth. And Joseph approached unto Esau, saying, What is this thing which they have spoken? Surely my father Jacob bought it from thee for great riches after the death of Isaac, now 25 years ago. And also all the land of Canaan he bought from thee, and from thy sons, and thy seed after thee. And Jacob bought it for his sons, and his seed after him for an inheritance forever. And why speakest thou these things this day? And Esau answered, saying, Thou speakest falsely, and utterest lies. For I sold not anything belonging to me in all this land, as thou sayest, neither did my brother Jacob buy aught belonging to me in this land. And Esau spoke these things in order to deceive Joseph with his words. For Esau knew that Joseph was not present in those days when Esau sold all belonging to him in the land of Canaan to Jacob. And Joseph said unto Esau, Surely my father inserted these things with thee in the record of purchase, and testified the record with witnesses, and behold, it is with us in Egypt. And Esau answered, saying unto him, Bring the record, all that thou wilt find in the record, so will we do. And Joseph called unto Naphtali his brother, and he said, Hasten quickly, stay not, and run, I pray thee, to Egypt, and bring all the records, the record of the purchase, the sealed record, and the open record, and also all the first records, in which all the transactions of the birthright are written, fetch thou. And thou shalt bring them unto us hither, that we may know from them all the words of Esau and his sons, which they spoke this day. And Naphtali hearkened to the voice of Joseph, and he hastened and ran to go down to Egypt. And Naphtali was lighter on foot than any of the stags that were upon the wilderness, for he would go upon ears of corn without crushing them. And when Esau saw that Naphtali had gone to fetch the records, he and his sons increased their resistance against the cave. And Esau and all his people rose up against Joseph and his brethren to battle. And all the sons of Jacob and the people of Egypt fought with Esau and his men. And the sons of Esau and his people were smitten before the sons of Jacob. And the sons of Jacob slew of Esau's people 40 men. And Cushim, the son of Dan, the son of Jacob, was at that time with Jacob's sons, but he was about 100 cubits distant from the place of battle, for he remained with the children of Jacob's sons by Jacob's bier to guard it. And Cushim was dumb and deaf. Still he understood the voice of consternation amongst men. And he asked, saying, Why do you not bury the dead? And what is this great consternation? And they answered him the words of Esau and his sons. And he ran to Esau in the midst of the battle, and he slew Esau with a sword, and he cut off his head, and it sprang to a distance, and Esau fell amongst the people of the battle. And when Cushim did this thing, the sons of Jacob prevailed over the sons of Esau, and the sons of Jacob buried their father Jacob by force in the cave, and the sons of Esau beheld it. And Jacob was buried in Hebron, in the cave of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the sons of Heth for the possession of a burial place, and he was buried in very costly garments. And no king had such honor paid him as Joseph paid unto his father at his death, for he buried him with great honor, like unto the burial of kings. And Joseph and his brethren made a mourning of 7 days for their father. Chapter 57. And it was after this that the sons of Esau waged war with the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Esau fought with the sons of Jacob in Hebron, and Esau was still lying dead and not buried. And the battle was heavy between them, and the sons of Esau were smitten before the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Jacob slew of the sons of Esau 80 men, and not one died of the people of the sons of Jacob. And the hand of Joseph prevailed over all the people of the sons of Esau, and he took Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and 50 of his men captive, and he bound them with chains of iron, and gave them into the hands of his servants to bring them to Egypt. And it came to pass, when the sons of Jacob had taken Zepho and his people captive, all those that remained were greatly afraid of their lives from the house of Esau, lest they should also be taken captive. And they all fled with Eliphaz, the son of Esau, and his people, with Esau's body, and they went on their road to Mount Seir. And they came unto Mount Seir, and they buried Esau in Seir, but they had not brought his head with them to Seir, for it was buried in that place where the battle had been in Hebron. And it came to pass, when the sons of Esau had fled before the sons of Jacob, the sons of Jacob pursued them unto the borders of Seir, but they did not slay a single man from amongst them when they pursued them, for Esau's body which they carried with them excited their confusion. So they fled, and the sons of Jacob turned back from them, and came up to the place where their brethren were in Hebron. And they remained there on that day, and on the next day, until they rested from the battle.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're going to pause here. This is our final excerpt from the story that we've been telling about our ancestor Yacob and our ancestor Esau. He's our ancestor too. I think we want to forget that sometimes because of his wickedness, but he is our relative. So what we see here in this final section, we see that Yacob has died and in Egypt, and we see Joseph coming to bury him in the land of Canaan as per his father's wishes in the cave of Machpelah. That is where he desires to be buried. He has legal rights to the cave of Machpelah, as we pointed out in the section previous. He was granted the cave. It belonged to him. The land of Canaan and the cave of Machpelah were Jacob's. Here we go. Esau, who wants everything. It wasn't good enough that he got all the riches and all the wealth after his father died. But now he wants the cave, and if he could take the land, he would take that too. He wants everything. But Yacob kept records. He had records, written records of the transactions that took place between he and his brother. He was wise enough to know that he needed to keep those things for posterity's sake, for his children's sake, because Esau, if he should outlive him, which he did by a little bit, would come back and try to take that which had already been promised to Yacob. So once again, even in his death, Esau is trying to take from Yacob. So you see the story, how it played out. Naphtali, who's really fast, was supposed to run back to Egypt and get the documents, and Yosef and the other brothers were standing there on guard, guarding Jacob's body because Esau and his sons would not allow him to be buried. So they're standing there and they're like at an impasse. They're just waiting for Naphtali to come back. And then there was some disagreement. People were arguing with each other. There was consternation. Jacob's sons are like, why won't you let us bury our father? Why are we standing out here outside this cave with our father's body here? It's just dishonoring to him. So they're upset. Esau's upset. His sons are upset. And so we're just seeing this consternation, as the scripture describes it as, this argument, this disagreeableness between the two parties. And the deaf and dumb son of Dan sees this happening and goes, he communicates somehow that he wants to know what's happening. And it's communicated to him what Esau is doing. Without skipping a beat, without missing, he didn't even pause. He grabbed his sword and he charged at Esau and he decapitated him. Now, we reap what we sow. Esau decapitated Nimrod, remember? Remember, Esau stalked Nimrod in the wilderness and decapitated him? And now we see Esau dying in the same way that he killed Nimrod. That's justice. That's justice. Okay? They're fighting now. And several of Esau's sons are killed, and the people that he brought with them. And it's on. Because when you get the children, when you get the sons of Jacob riled up, it's on. Because they're going to fight. The power of the Most High comes upon them, and it is on. And they defeat their foes. They defeat their enemies. When Judah and Simeon get together, those brothers, they go to town. They can take on thousands by the two of them, by themselves, with the power of the Most High on them. And those days are coming again, brothers and sisters. They're coming again. Hallelujah. But in the meantime, we hope, we wait, and we pray for the Most High to make us worthy of His power, worthy of the greater works that are coming. One of the things we see in this account at the ending here is that Zepho and the descendants of Esau are taken by Joseph, into slavery in Egypt. So Esau's descendants are enslaved. This story of Esau and Jacob almost perfectly aligns to the history of our people and the future judgment that's coming. We know that those who lead into captivity will be led into captivity. Those who kill with the sword will be killed with the sword. We know that Esau is ruled by his sword. We know that Esau led into captivity, and he and his descendants, I should say, will be led into captivity. It's coming. It's the Most High's recompense. And so this story perfectly aligns with the prophecy that have been laid out in the scriptures for us regarding Esau and his judgment. Some of them will be killed with the sword, and some of them will go into slavery. It's been written. And so we see that in this story. And so Esau's men were killed by the children of Yasharal. They did not lose one man, not one man, because when they fight with the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? It's a really remarkable testimony of the faithfulness of Yacob, even to death, to make sure that he was taking care of his family by leaving records of everything. He was an honorable man, and his character shines through very brightly. Esau, on the other hand, was a wicked man, and his character is dull, argumentative, warrior-like, and he conquers with his sword. And he has been conquering all this time. As you've seen in the Revelation 17 series, that Rome, the Roman Empire that's been ruling since the time of Messiah, since before the time of Messiah, is essentially the kingdom of Esau, who has been ruling by his sword. But soon, the rock that has been hewn without human hands will come and strike the statue on the feet at the 10 toes, and destroy the kingdom of Esau and destroy the nations that have been holding the Most High's people captive, that have been taking advantage of them and using them and abusing them and stealing their labor and treating them very much in the same way that Yacob was treated. One day soon, we're going to be vindicated, and the Most High is going to make our enemies pay. The Most High will do it. The Most High is going to do it. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about our ancestors and hearing about the things that they went through. And I pray that once and for all, we have vindicated our ancestor Jacob's name. He was an honorable man, and the Most High loved him and favored him. May we never allow ourselves to at all and at any point in the future entertain even a thought that our ancestor, our father, Yacob, was not a righteous man. He was. He was a righteous man. And the Most High accepted him and received him. And because he did, we have favor with the Most High. Yacob received the blessing of Isaac, which was the blessing of Abraham. And then he passed it on to his children. And we are partakers of that barakah, that blessing, because of the honor with which our ancestor Yacob carried himself. We are children of Yacob. I am Yacob. I am Yacob. You are Yacob. And one day soon, the world is going to know. We are Jacob's kids. Hallelujah. So thank you for joining me once again, brothers and sisters on the channel. I thank you so much for being here. And this is the end of our little mini-series on our ancestor Yacob, an honorable man indeed. So I just pray that the Most High would baruch and keep you, that he would make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you, that he would lift up his countenance upon you and grant you shalom, peace, peace and more peace, today and every day. May we all walk in integrity and with honor, as our ancestor Yacob did. Shalom and shalom, brothers and sisters.